everybody, welcome back to the Knitting Butterflies podcast. This is Emily. I wanted to say hello. It has been a long time since I've podcasted, and I'll update you on how everything is going and all the things that have been going on in my life since I last spoke to you guys. Some of you are noticing that this is video, and some of you are noticing that this is audio. I am recording both the video and the audio at the same time to hopefully accommodate for the multiple ways of taking in podcasts that you all use, because I know sometimes I do audio and sometimes I do video, but I really enjoy the interaction that comes with video because you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So I'll try to be as descriptive as possible for all of you. But before we get started, I probably should say thank you so much for tuning in today and joining me in my living room. It's a little bit of a mess, but hopefully it'll still work for you all. Thanks for joining in. It is Monday, December 5th, 2015. I believe this is episode 40 something. Not really sure. I'm on a new computer that I just bought for Black Friday. And so I'm still getting the hang of getting everything set up, but I thought that the setup for it would work really well for a video podcast. So that was part of why I went for it. So, a little bit of an update on how everything is going. I'm actually podcasting to you guys earlier than I had planned. I had not planned on chatting with you until after Christmas. And the more I thought about it over the last week or so, the more I was just like, gosh, I really miss you guys. And I miss the interaction. I miss seeing the threads on Ravelry being interacted with. I just miss my knitting friends. Like, Instagram is great, but I really miss feeling like I'm sitting down and talking with you guys. Update on what's going on for me. I am recovered from my surgery. I had a thyroidectomy because I had my thyroid taken out. And it was overactive and it was time for it to come out. And so physically, I am fully recovered. That didn't take very long. It took a couple weeks, and just some taking it easy for a while and stuff. So that's fully recovered. We're still figuring out the hormone replacement therapy. And so while we figure that stuff out, there's a lot of emotional recovery that has to happen because your thyroid regulates a lot of different things in your body, including mood swings. And when it's not working correctly, things can get a little crazy. So it's been an adjustment for our family for sure, but it is going well. I'm on my third different dose of the thyroid hormone. I won't bore you with all the details, but we're hoping that maybe third time is a charm. I don't know. We'll see. At this point, I only have to see my doctor every 6 weeks. Or I only have to get blood drawn every 6 weeks, and then I only have to see her every 3 to 6 months. So we're on a good path right now. So that's kind of where we are with the health stuff. I'm really glad, though, that I took a break from shooting and from the podcast and mostly from the blog and everything else during that time, though, because it was so up in the air. And I didn't know if I was going to have a migraine that day, or if I was going to be really tired, or if I was going to be really anxious, or what every day was going to hold for a while. And even now, as I'm speaking, I can feel my throat getting a little bit hoarse. So I'll try to keep the podcast fairly short. We'll see how that goes. But I have just kind of been taking things one day at a time. And so I've been planning a bunch of content for the podcast and figured, when I get a chance to sit down and do it, I'll do it. And our 2-year-old now, he's 2.5 now, and he was 3 months old when the podcast started, just to give you an idea of how big he's gotten. He's given up his crib. And so he tried to give up his nap at the same time. And I said, no way, because when I got back to shooting photographs and things and doing sessions and editing and talking to clients and podcasting and all that other stuff, I have to have that quiet time in place for like an hour, hour and a half each day. Otherwise, I was going to go nuts. And so we've been working a lot on some of the super nanny techniques in our home, not just for the nap time, but for just life in general, getting a regular schedule in place, getting a cleaning schedule in place for myself and for the kids to be helping out, which is really important. Scheduling time to sit and to play with the kids and to turn off the phones and to put away the knitting and all that other stuff that we get so caught up in doing, and including myself. And so I've been consciously making an effort to sit on the floor a lot more and play with my kids more than I usually do, which truthfully wasn't a whole lot because there are so many of them that keep each other busy. But I'm trying to get more consistent with that, and we're seeing a lot of really good results from moving into that type of lifestyle. And so it's been really good for our family. I highly recommend the super nanny techniques if you ever need them. Sometimes they take forever to get started, but once you do, I think the first time I tried putting him down for a nap, it took 2.5 hours of over and over and over and over again. And now I can get him down and like putting him down like 3 times, and then he's done. And he knows, okay, mom's not kidding, it's time for bed, and he'll go to sleep. So that being said, I only have like 45 minutes that he actually sleeps. So today we're using that 45 minutes on you guys. So that's kind of where we are. It's almost Christmas. We've had a lot of stuff going on. We took a trip to Michigan, including Omaha, where I visited Prairie Girl Danny and the Omaha Zoo, and we got to see my new nephew, who's brand new, and I got to give him his sweater that I made for him. It's been a lot of knitting. I'm not going to talk about all the projects that I have been working on because that would be the longest podcast. Maybe not as long as some of the podcasters out there, but it would be really long. So I thought I would just show you my latest stuff that I've been working on, and maybe we'll do some remember and reminisce in later episodes just to kind of show you all the projects that we've been working on lately too. So anyway, we might as well go ahead and get started. So I have a couple finished objects that I wanted to show you. They're the same finished object that I made twice. This is the Force Awakens hat by Hannah L. And this is so awesome. I made 2 of these, one for my son and one for my daughter. Here, let me do this because you know you like it when we wear this stuff. This hat is a stranded colorwork hat, knit from the bottom up, and it is all about Star Wars right now. I don't know about your house, but our house is all about Star Wars right now. The kids are totally obsessed. My daughter was Darth Vader for Halloween, which I love her, and my son was an X-Wing pilot. They're so excited about the new movie, but they technically are not really allowed to see the new movie because it's PG-13. But I went ahead and made them these hats. So this hat, the bottom of it is TIE fighters, both the worker TIE fighters and then the head TIE fighter. This is the kind of TIE fighter that Darth Vader flies, in case you haven't seen the original movies. I'm a total nerd. And then it says The Force Awakens above that, and then above that are some stars, and then some Stormtrooper and some lightsaber decals. And I love this hat. This is a free pattern. This is Hannah's only pattern that she has published on Ravelry, to my knowledge. Knits up super fast. I knit so my son's is in gray and black and white, and my daughter's is red and black and white because red is her favorite color. And it's just the yarn that I had on hand, and I knit the gray one in a day and a half. The red one took me a little bit longer just because I didn't have as much time, and I was working on them when the kids were not around, obviously. So they knit up really quickly. I don't have my ends woven in yet, and they're not blocked. I keep telling my husband that I'm going to teach him how to weave in ends because none of my projects have the ends woven in yet. And we sit and we watch TV together a lot of nights after the kids go to bed, and I sit and knit, and he just sits, and I just said, you know, you could be weaving in ends for me. A long time ago, he used to sew the patches on the Boy Scout uniform, so I know he can use a needle. And I told him, I said, it's easier than using a needle and thread for Boy Scout patches, and so I think I might actually have convinced him that I will teach him how to weave in ends, and he can weave in all of the ends for my projects because I have a ton of them. So that is these hats. Like I said, the ends are not woven in, and I think I'm also going to put a big old pom-pom on the back or on the top of each of these. The yarn is Brown Sheep Nature Spun Sport, which I love this yarn. It's very soft, very squishy. It knits up beautifully in stranded color work. And I have knit with Brown Sheep yarns before. I did my nephew's sweater out of Brown Sheep Nature Spun fingering. So this is the sport weight. I think I like the sport weight better than the fingering. It's softer by a long shot. Like I could picture putting this next to baby skin after it's washed up. The Nature Spun fingering, it needed to be over a t-shirt or something. So I really enjoyed that. And then I think I knit these on US 6. If I did it again, I'd actually probably drop it down to a 4. It's a little bit big. That's all. It's just like I can pull it over my whole face if I want to. So it's just a little bit big, but it can be slouchy and fun. And so that is the Force Awakens hat. So I really enjoyed that project. I have some washcloths that I wanted to show you. This is nothing, again, none of my ends are woven in, but these are nothing terribly fancy. I knit these out of Brown Sheep cotton fleece. I have a whole bunch of Brown Sheep in my stash because Joanna and I went to their shop and bought a bunch of seconds. So I have this kind of steel blue, and then I have this baby pink washcloth. I actually have 5 of them crocheted up so far. I have 2 blue ones and 3 pink ones done so far, and I'm almost done with my last blue one. This is just a basic shell pattern. This is the first stitch pattern that I ever learned how to crochet, and I learned how to crochet before I learned how to knit. It's just 3 double crochets in 1 stitch, and then skip 1, single crochet, skip 1, 3 double crochets in 1, skip 1, just over and over and over again. And then I did a single crochet border around the edge. These washcloths are getting sent off to Amy from the Hudson Valley Knits podcast. She is doing the senior love along where she brings washcloths to seniors in the nursing home that she works with. And all the people in the nursing home are veterans or spouses of veterans. And so I think it's a really awesome cause. She was in really big time need of washcloths last time I checked in. I think she had like 15. I know several of you have been knitting washcloths with her because I've been watching the hashtag on Instagram, but Amy, just, there are another 6 coming your way by the end of the week. So I will not be entering for prizes, but she does have a lot of awesome prizes for the senior love along. So if you send her a washcloth, if you take a picture of it before you send it in, you can put it on the Ravelry thread on the Hudson Valley Knits podcast group, and you'll be entered to win a prize for every washcloth that you turn in a picture of. So she has a lot of awesome prizes for this contest. So there's a lot of chances to win, and she really, really needs these. I think they have 200 residents that they want to give at least 1 washcloth. Last year they were able to give 2 to every single resident. So please, please, please. I think these take a half an hour for me to do when I crochet them. It's a lot faster than knitting. And I just need to sit down and get that last one done. So maybe I'll even do that tonight so I can get, them out in the mail tomorrow. So those washcloths that I wanted to show you. I can't see anything because I took my glasses off. I probably should put them back on. Okay, so I knit the 2 hats, and Christy from Innis Knit came and visited recently. This is Chris Loves Wool from the Innis Knit podcast. She came and was at a conference down in Denver, and she has family in Colorado Springs, and so we decided to get together because she was in town. And so it was about an hour and a half drive for me to get to her in Denver, and we met at the Lamb Shop in Denver. I think it's off of 12th Street, and kind of had just a day, the 2 of us. We don't get a lot of time to spend time just the 2 of us. And I know a lot of you guys mentioned, oh, I wish I had known that you guys were there. We would have met up with you and stuff. And I felt so bad that we didn't let you all know. But at the same time, we talk all the time and stuff. But when we get together, we don't really have a lot of opportunity to just be just the 2 of us. And so that was kind of what we wanted to do. So we met at the lamb shop. We had pizza for dinner, and then we did some yarn shopping. Lamb shop is adorable. It has a lot of really good sock yarn. It has some really good high quality stuff. They had things like, I wanted to say Jill Draper, but I don't think that's what it was. There was some really good high quality stuff that I haven't seen in a shop before. So what I love about yarn shops is that there's so many different products that you can go to different yarn stores and you'll always find something different than what you can get at home, because I wanted to get stuff that I couldn't get at the Loop U, which is where I normally shop. So I was looking around and I just thought to myself, I have so much yarn at home. I have a ton of yarn at home. And I was like, I don't really need anything else. I have like all of my knitting plans through like April already. And so I couldn't figure out what I wanted to purchase, but I knew I wanted to buy something because, one, I don't like to go to a yarn shop without purchasing something. I want to help keep them in business. But two, I wanted something special to commemorate, this day with me and Christy. And she bought some really beautiful yarn that I helped her pick out and stuff. And we're sitting there and they have these big oversized chairs in the front, and it's so inviting. And we just sat and knit for like 2 hours. It was awesome. And the whole time this yarn was staring me in the face. And this is Manos del Uruguay in the Maxima base, which is a worsted single. It's really nice. And the colorway is Aurora Borealis. So it's blues and greens and reds with little pops of pink and turquoise, a little bit of purple. It's just all different colors. Sorry. And I'll mute my phone, sorry. And it's just all different colors. And I loved it so much. And it was just staring at me the whole time saying, take me home and knit me. This is something Christmassy. And it looks very Christmassy to me. Like, to me, this is all these bright light colors. And so I kept staring at it and I kept telling Christy, what do I want to make out of this? Because I don't wear colors that are that bright normally. And it has a little bit of white in it too. And I just said, I don't wear colors that are that bright. And so we were kind of throwing back and forth ideas. And I said, it just looks like a hat to me. I want it to be a bright and colorful hat. But I don't like to pair things with, or I don't like to just use bright colored variegated yarn by itself very often. I like to often use a neutral just to kind of help it tone down just a little bit, simmer down a little bit. So I also bought white in the Manos del Uruguay. So actually it's in here. I'm working on a project right now. There's the white. So I think they look really beautiful together. And I said, but that's an expensive hat. And she was like, well, then make two. She's so smart. So I decided to make one for my daughter, my younger daughter, and then I'm making one for my niece. And they are best friends. They're 6 months apart or 8 months apart. They're best friends and they're going to love having coordinating hats. So this is the first one that I made. This one's for my daughter. This is the, here, I'm going to take my glasses off again. This is the basic brimmed hat by Pearl Soho. Pearl Soho has some really awesome basic patterns. And I'll just try this on for you all right here. I can't see what it looks like because I don't have my glasses on, but it's a little bit tight on my head because it's made for the child size, but I think it's super cute. The brim on this one is white and the Aurora Borealis is the body of the hat. And then I knit the entire hat. It's done. I used a tubular cast on, which I totally love. I'm using it for everything from now on, ever. Obviously not, but it's my favorite cast on to use. I use it when I do socks and stuff too. And so this one, ooh, it's hurting my head because it's so tight on my head. Good thing she's got a small head. But it was 80 stitches around. It's a free pattern, so I can tell you, but it's 80 stitches around with a nice wide brim that you can fold up, which is important because I wanted their ears to be nice and warm. And then the body of the hat is the color. And then, so that's the first hat, and I have started the second hat and I flipped them. I didn't want them to be the same because 4 and 5-year-olds, if they're the same, they always think it's theirs. So this way we can easily tell the difference. So for my niece, her hat is the color brim and then the body of the hat will be white. I bought some pom-pom makers at Joann recently as well, so that I can finish these off with really big pom-poms, because I'm done with the Aurora Borealis. I'm completely done. I don't have anything else to knit, and I have still quite a bit of yarn left. And I'm expecting the same thing to happen for the white. And so I'm going to make really big pom-poms to stick on the top. And I'm also contemplating maybe embroidering snowflakes, embroidering white snowflakes on my daughters and then the colored snowflakes on my nieces. We'll see if I decide to do those. I don't know how to embroider on knitting, so we'll see. I might have to look up some YouTube tutorials, but those are really fun. So they don't take very long, and it's just stockinette. I really like stockinette knitting right now. I tried to do cables on another product, and I just didn't have the brain capacity. And this way, because I have so little knitting time by myself, it's like in the car or during church or at the movie theater on the rare occasion that we get to go to a movie. Stockinette is awesome, because then I can do all those things and not have to worry about messing up for the most part in stockinette. So that is that current project. I also have yarn to make my youngest son, the 2-year-old, and my nephew, who is 6 months older than him, coordinating hats as well. So you will probably see that next time I record. This knitting that I'm working on. Again, none of the ends are woven in. When I visited Danny from the Prairie Girls, we spent a couple days in Omaha. We stayed in a hotel, but we spent a lot of time at her house with her family. And our families like clicked so well, and it was like magic. I loved it so much. So she had beer koozies at her house, and I had never used a beer koozie. I always figured I wouldn't like them because to me, a beer koozie is just the part that goes around the beer bottle, and I was just picturing it slipping out all the time, like the bottle just slipping out of the beer koozie, and it would just drive me insane. And so I didn't want to do that. And at her house, she had beer koozies that had like a bottom part of the beer bottle on it. And so I used it, and I felt very fancy with, with these beer koozies on our beer bottles. And so I decided that this year for Christmas, I would use up a bunch of leftover fingering weight yarn and make my family beer koozies, because, yeah, I'm not going to go into that, but I just thought it would be a fun gift for my whole family. And like at Cracker Barrel and stuff, they sell like cream soda and things like that, and like unusual flavors like black cherry cream soda or something. So I was thinking about I would knit each person a beer koozie and find like a specialty beverage of some kind and put it into the beer koozie and then put that in their stocking for Christmas, because I think that'd be a fun gift. So I have finished 3 so far. My first one I did was out of One Twisted Tree, 93 Diagon Alley, which is dyed by Danny, of One Twisted Tree. I did knit a pair of socks out of this. I knit the Whiz Bang pattern by Mrs. Shu, Sarah from Innisnit. And this is just the pattern. I don't remember the name of the pattern or the person who wrote it. I'll look it up and I'll make sure it's in the show notes. But it's just a basic, it's ribbing and then stockinette, and then the bottom, you knit the bottom in garter. So the bottom is a little bit squishy. There we go. And it's nice because then it's like a coaster too. It's super fancy. I'm telling you, makes me feel fancy. So that was my first one. I think this one will be for my sister. And then the next one I knit this is Dream in Color Smooshy in the Beach Fog colorway, and I knit my View from the Charles by Boston Jen out of this color as the main color of that shawl. And it's this beautiful turquoise with pops of light blue and a little bit of tan and a little bit of purple and sometimes a slight pop of green. It's really beautiful, and I loved knitting that. And then this one I finished. This, you can't really see the color very well because it's really dark, but this is Fiber Story Fave Sock, and it's a dark purple color. I don't remember the name of the colorway. This was one of the colors that I used to knit my Virgie Clay by Sarah Stevens. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like the Marsala color, the 2015 color of the year. I think I don't know. I really like the texture of this one. It's a little bit squishier than the other ones. I think it's, how many plies is this? I can find out. Oh, it's only 2 plies, but they're kind of thick plies. So, so that one's done, and then I'm working on the 4th right now out of Dream in Color Smooshie in the Torchwood colorway. This was the other half of my view from the Charles. It's just a dark charcoaly gray with a little bit of brown undertone in it. So that's what I have so far. I have other colors that I'll be knitting these out of. I need to get a total of 7 done for myself and my family before Christmas, and they take like an hour and a half to knit, start to finish. So they're really fast, and they're super fun, and they're something I can work on while my kids are around because it's not for them. So I work on those when the kids are around, and then the hats when they're not around, and it's all stockinette knitting, so it works out well. The last project that I am knitting right now is a big project for me. This is the, sorry, I'm thinking to myself. This is the Water and Stone Cardigan by Vera Valimaki, and I really love this cardigan. This is an asymmetrical cardigan, and I'm knitting it out of One Twisted Tree because I love it so much, and her Lavish base, which is the Sport Weight 100% Superwash Merino base in the Hinky Punk colorway. So this is a really beautiful semi-tonal of lavenders and darker purples, and if you look at it from far away, it reads gray, and then the closer that you get to it, it reads more purple. I love knitting with this yarn. First of all, it's so squishy and it feels very luxurious. I tried to unravel it to see how many plies there are, and this is one of those yarns that it's made of several plies of plied yarn. So there's 4 plies, and each of those plies has 2 plies inside of it. So it's actually 8 total. So it's going to wear out very, very nicely. I'm not worried about it pilling at all. It's really durable, but it's so soft at the same time. Like, this is totally next to skin wearable. The yarn is just gorgeous, and the color sense that she has is just amazing. And I'm laughing at myself because I think this is my 5th purpley gray sweater that will be living in my closet, but it's my first like long sleeved one. So I have a couple short sleeve ones and a couple 3/4 length sleeves, and now this is my first long sleeve. So the pattern itself is an asymmetrical cardigan, and I'm not going to give away too much because it is a paid for pattern and that's important. But basically, there's a cable that starts in the back of the neck, and it's a really beautiful cable pattern that goes down one side, and then the other side is stockinette. And you essentially knit the back of the collar, and then you put those stitches on holders, and then you pick up underneath the collar and start knitting the body down. So it's knit from the top down, but you're knitting the collar at the same time, which I love that because I have a hard time trying on cardigans that are top down when there's no collar because it doesn't sit quite right. So you knit that. So like I said, the cable goes down one side and not the other, but then on the front, there's another cable that starts eventually, and there's also another cable that starts on the back. So there's 3 different places where this cable motif is happening, but I really admire how, I don't know if it was done on purpose or not, but the way that Vera has her stitch count set up, I'm actually in the same place on all 3 cables at the same time, all the time. And I don't know how that worked out, but it just did. So I have knit the entire yoke, and then I put the body on holders and I knit both of the sleeves. So the sleeves are both done completely. I could try this on for you now, but it looks funny with this shirt. No, and my needles aren't long enough, so I actually can't try it on right now. I knit both of the sleeves. I have tried it on with both of the sleeves knit. I don't like how the sleeves fit. there's kind of a pooch that is happening at my wrist. I have really long and slender wrists, and as I get to about halfway between my elbow and my wrist, the fabric starts to pooch a little bit, and then the ribbing starts in an odd place, and it doesn't tell you to go down a needle size for the ribbing, and I didn't, and I don't like how that feels. So I think what I'm going to do, I kind of felt like I was in the black hole of sleeves for a while, so I stopped knitting the sleeves for a little bit, or I finished them. I did completely finish them. I powered through and I got them done. Tried it on, didn't like them, and I didn't want to rip back yet. So I am just leaving the sleeves as is for now, and then I'm knitting the body. So I am about, oh goodness, 4 inches past the armhole on knitting the body. And I'm just going to keep knitting and get the body of the sweater done. And then what I'm going to do, I don't like my bind off either. I use Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off, and I really don't like how it looks on this at all. Sometimes it looks great, not in this application. So I will be ripping out the bind off on this and then ripping back until that same place about halfway in between my elbow and my wrist, and probably adding in one more decrease and then going down a needle size and then doing ribbing from that point all the way down. So it'll have a lot of ribbing. I like my sweaters to hug my wrists. I like to feel warm, and the way that it is right now, it just doesn't feel cozy and warm. So I think that's what I'm going to do for those. So, but the rest of it is going really nicely. The cable motif is so much fun to knit. I just have a blast with knitting it. And it's just an interesting pattern. I really am enjoying it a whole lot. So that's my big project for me right now. And that's the one that I work on at my mom and dad's house, because I can't work on anybody's Christmas presents when I'm at their house because they're all for them. So I kind of have like my different project for each place that I'm working on. So that is the majority of my knitting works in progress right now. I do have some spinning that I want to talk to you guys about. I worked on my fleece that I bought at the Estes Park Wool Market. And if you listen to the podcast, you know that I bought this fleece from the Estes Park Wool Market from Windy Hill Farms, I think is what it was called. It was a silver CVM, 3.5 pounds, somewhere in there. And a mix of light silvers and darker and a little bit of charcoaly in there and stuff, just kind of depending on where on the sheep it was a little bit spotted, and it was so beautiful. Lots of color variation in it, and it was just really lovely. And it sat in my closet for a lot longer than I would like to admit. I tried washing some of it a while ago and it just didn't go well. And after my surgery, I had all this spare time because I stopped volunteering. I stopped going to mom group. I just like put a halt on everything. And I had an evening where I was like, I'm feeling really good right now, probably medication talking. And I was like, I have nothing to do tonight. The kids were otherwise occupied. I think they might have been in bed. I want to say I started this at like 9 o'clock at night. I was like, you know what? I'm going to wash my fleece. And I had been pondering how I was going to wash it for a few days. Our water heater doesn't get hot enough to wash it the way that you're supposed to. It only gets up to 120, and I cannot figure out how to get it up any higher. So I devised a plan where I put the hottest water possible in my sink and then boiled stock pots full of water on the stove, and then I would add that, and then I would put the fleece in that. So it was like 150 to start, and then it would slowly get cooler, but I was, I did a couple washes and a couple rinses and lots of Dawn dish soap, and the water turned clear and everything went great. And I ended up washing my entire fleece. I washed half of it one night and then half of it a few nights later using the same process. And I used a baby gate sitting on top of my bathtub to be the dryer for it and stuff. I had planned everything out, and I was so excited because the fleece finally got washed. And I ended up renting a drum carder from Your Daily Fiber in Fort Collins, and decided I was going to process this fleece myself because I wanted to learn about it. And I feel like with every step from washing to where I am now, I try the step with the information that I have, and then it doesn't go well. And so then I do more research and ask a few questions, and then I try it again, and then it goes better, and then I get a whole bunch done. So that's essentially what happened with each step that I had done so far. I rented the drum carder. I started picking the fleece by hand, which is where you just take the fibers, the locks, and like open them up, and I picked a whole bunch of it, and then I rented the drum carder, and it really went terribly for a while. I don't know why. I still don't know why. So I tried a few things, let the drum carder sit for like a week, and then my friend was like, hey, can I come over and borrow your drum carder? And I was like, well, it's not mine, but you can come over and use it. So she brought some fiber over, and just from watching her, and we were experimenting a little bit and stuff, I was able to learn a whole lot. So then I made like 10 bats. So I made like 10 of these bats. They're not terribly big. They're maybe an ounce. But I learned how to pass the fiber through multiple times, which was one of the problems that I was having before, was that I couldn't do that. This is still not great. This particular one, this is one of my earlier bats. But I learned how to pass the fiber through multiple times. Gosh, I'm looking at it and there's still a bunch of nups in here. The problem I ran into was I made like 10 bats, and I thought to myself, well, I really should try spinning from one of these to see what kind of yarn I'm going to get, so that if I'm doing something wrong, I can fix it before I process the rest of this fleece. So I did that, and I spun my first skein of yarn from my fleece. I have no idea what the yardage is. I have no idea what the wraps per inch, and I don't know what the weight is, because this was so frustrating to spin. It was so frustrating. I kept ending up with all these nups in my spinning. If you look at it, if you're watching the video, if you can see all these little nups, and they just drove me insane. I tried picking them out, and as I was carding, I was learning to catch. For sure this is another second cut that I missed. Let's pull that out. For sure this is whatever. Let's pull that out and stuff. But I just kept ending up with these nups and stuff. But what I did that I did like was that I tried different. I tried making roving, I tried making a bat, and then I tried some, I don't know what the third one, I think it was something that I made up. And I did them in different colors from the bat. So I had like this darker color, and I did that as one type of prep, and then I did the lighter color as one type of prep. So I spun this really long single, and then I Navajo plied it. I like Navajo plying better than any other form of plying personally. I just like the movement and the repetition of it. But the problem I ran into with the Navajo plying of this was that the nups caught on each other all the time. And so then I would end up with like 3 of them stuck together. Made them bigger, and it made it worse. So I learned to not Navajo ply, which is good that I learned that now, instead of spinning the whole fleece and then deciding to Navajo ply the whole thing, because that would be a disaster. I like the way that it looks. I feel like it does have a good twist. It's a little bit fuzzier than I normally would spin, but I suppose that's to be expected with a true woolen prep. I don't know if a gleaner will fix this. I don't know. So I just have to remember, this was my first 3 bats / roving that I did. And I was really contemplating, what am I going to do with the rest of this fleece, because I didn't have the drum carder for that much longer. So I talked to Sherry from Moral Fleece Works. She and I kind of emailed back and forth a little bit, and just kind of talked it over and thought about what we could do and stuff. I went ahead and processed half of the fleece myself. So I have half of it completely carded, done, ready to spin, and I am going to go ahead and keep that, and I am going to spin it. It might look like a sweater that's full of pills. Oh well. my plan is to make like a big oversized sweater to wear around the house when it's all done. We'll see. I haven't decided. So if it's just something that I wear around the house, it's not a big deal if it's full of pills. I'm still toying around with ideas on what I'm going to do with this when it's done. But, you know, you live and you learn. So I pretty much learned that I hate processing fleece. And I will never, ever, ever do it again. And that the money spent on Sherry doing it for me is money well spent. So if I happen to purchase another fleece, unless I take a class with somebody like holding my hand through the whole thing, I won't be processing another fleece. So I'm glad though that I learned that. And so now I'm not going to be on the search on Craigslist for a drum carder and shell out another couple $100 to process fleeces when I really don't like processing them. So that's what I learned from that. So I feel like overall it was a positive experience and I'm glad that I did it. And I learned a whole lot. So that's good. So now I have like 1.5 pounds of fleece to go spin. Hopefully I enjoy it. We'll see. I guess it just depends on how much better my fiber prep. I feel like I did get a lot better at it as I went on. So I'm hoping that the stuff I did later turns out better when I spin it. I think it will. I don't know. We'll have to see. So that is that. For photography, I have a couple things I wanted to tell you about. So let me go grab my camera real quick and then I'll be right back with you. Okay, so for photography, I thought I would just talk a little bit about, there are two things. I wanted to tell you a story of what my husband and I did recently with my camera. So this is, I shoot with a Nikon D5200. This is a mid-grade entry-level camera in that this is nicer than the lowest end that you can buy, but the lowest end that you can buy is actually still really good and a lot better than the camera that I started my business with. I'm saving up for a full frame camera right now, but I have a lot of work to do before I have that much money. So, but this is a really good camera for a lot of reasons. I love it. It does the job very well. It's nice and sturdy and I really love it. So the lens that I have on here is my 50mm 1.8 lens and 50mm 1.8 G, which is very important. I don't know if I told the story on the podcast that I bought this lens a few years ago. The 50mm 1.8 is the lens that whenever people ask me, hey, I want to start investing in other lenses for my camera, and I say, well, what are you shooting mostly? If you're shooting landscape, I don't know. But if you're shooting portraits or kids or a lot of stuff inside, this is always the first lens that I recommend. It's about $225. So it feels expensive, but it's actually on the much less expensive side of buying lenses. And I think I bought mine on keh.com used for like $120. So you can buy them used and refurbished for considerably less if you can find them. They're just tricky to find because they're such popular lenses and people keep them and use them forever. So I had this lens for a couple years and I used it all the time. And I had it in my camera bag with no lens cap on, which is very bad. Don't do that. And my son dumped sand into my camera bag and into my lens. And so there's this little lip around where when the camera focuses, it moves back and forth and the sand got caught in there and it couldn't come out. So the autofocus became broken on this lens completely. It wouldn't autofocus at all. And I could manually focus, but you know how when you feel something kind of resist, you really don't want to turn it more because you know it's just going to snap something? That's what was happening. So I went ahead and I bought what I thought was a replacement for this lens. I bought the 50mm 1.8D, which is an earlier version of the same lens. And it works great and it has autofocus on it, but you have to have a much earlier version of a Nikon camera for the autofocus to work. and neither of my camera bodies works with it. So it wouldn't autofocus at all, but it would manually focus. And I did not have the money to buy the nicer lens. So I freaked out for a while, and then I just said, you know what, forget this. I'm going to learn how to use manual focus. And I have been spending 3 or 4 months really perfecting my technique in manual focus. That was a really difficult thing for me to do, but I did it. And I feel like it made me so much better photographer. Some of the baby work that I did with it, I feel like is some of my very best work. When they're sleeping and they're lying still and they're still, you can really capture that really beautiful sharp eyelashes and nose and lips, and then the rest of it is just nice and soft. So I feel like some of my work that I did with that lens is some of my best work I've ever done. But using a manual focus lens with kids is a disaster because they're always moving. Even if they're sitting in one place, they're moving their heads or their hands or their bodies or something, and there's just no way to focus on them ever. And kids are my bread and butter. Like photographing kids and families is my bread and butter. I was looking at some of my earlier work from like the year before and the year before that, and I really liked even just my family, the pictures of my family living life the way that we live life that I shot with the old lens. I liked so much better than the stuff I was getting with even my I bought an 18 to 200 millimeter lens, and I liked the stuff with the 50 millimeter lens a lot better. With the lens that was a third of the price, and yeah, I liked the photos a whole lot better. And so I was like, you know what? I told my husband, I said, I had kept this other lens. And I said, at this point, this is a really expensive paperweight. It'll cost me $125 to take it in and get it fixed from the local camera store. And I currently don't have it because I didn't take any sessions all fall. And so I needed the money that I had in the account for other expenses to wrap up the year. And so I was like, I don't have the money in my account to get this fixed. What if we take it apart and fix it ourselves? And I was like, because I have a lens that I can still use. I can still work. And I said, if we take it apart and we fix it ourselves, it saves us a whole bunch of money. And if we break it, it's already broken. So let's try it. And he kind of freaked out a little bit. So we watched a bunch of YouTube videos about it, and there used to be a sticker on the front round part of this lens that said like what the lens was, Nikon 50 millimeter, blah, blah, blah. And we peeled the sticker off, and there are 4 teeny tiny screws, and we unscrewed all 4 of those, which allowed the focus ring to come off. And I was able to clean everything out, get all the sand out and everything. And I was super nervous because when you take those screws off, sometimes you can really mess up some of the micro adjustments of the lens. So we were very, very careful when we put it back together, and we put it back together, and I tested it, and it works perfectly. Don't do it. If you do, it's not my fault if you break your lens, but we did it and we didn't break the lens. So now I have 2 50 millimeter lenses, one that does manual focus, one that does autofocus, and I couldn't be happier. So I have not been shooting a whole lot with it yet because my 2.5-year-old will break this thing so fast that my camera is not out when he is awake ever. One time I caught him with, thank goodness he was wearing the strap, because he took my camera and chucked it across the room and just ended up chucking himself with it, and everything was fine. Nobody got hurt. So, so this is not out when he is awake. But I need to start perfecting my shots again and really working on them. And so I'm just glad to have a good lens to do that with. So I just wanted to tell you that little bit of a story about this lens because it just felt like an adventure. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the number one question that I get asked as a photographer, and that is, where should I get my prints done? We live in an age that is digital, and digital is great. I love Facebook. I am addicted to Time Hop. It's great. But if your house is going to burn down, what is the first thing that you're going to save? And people often say as their first thing that they say is their photos, their photo albums. Very few people think to grab their hard drive or their computer. Computers crash. They definitely have a fixed time limit before they will crash and everything will be destroyed. And unfortunately, that timeline is actually getting shorter. We're starting to find that the technology is, I don't want to say it's being designed in a way that they wanted to crash sooner, because that just sounds mean. But if you notice, phones don't last a whole lot longer. Like the old Nokias that we had, they lasted for like 8 years or 10 years. And now, you're lucky if you can make it through the 2 years of your contract before you have to have a new phone because you dropped it or you broke it or it doesn't make phone calls anymore or whatever. So digital is great, but if you only keep your photos in digital format, you will lose them. I guarantee it, in some way, shape, or form. If you get prints done in an archival quality and they don't burn down or something, they will last for well over 100 years. So you will be able to personally enjoy them for the span of your lifetime, most likely hand them off to future generations if you get them printed in an archival quality. So I'm in the process of working in my business toward moving away from only handing over digital files, because I was finding that about 85% of my clients were never printing off their sessions. I would turn over the files, they would pay me, and then they were done. And I would say, go get your photos printed, and then they never would. And so I was getting emails like 1.5 years to 2 years later saying, hey, I want to get these printed. Where do I get them printed and stuff? And I just said, you know what? It's time for me to move into a format in my business where I'm helping people get their prints done. And this is why I wanted to show you. Let me see if I can do this without making you guys sick. So these are my family's prints that are up on our wall from our family session. And I walk in the door and I see them immediately, and they go well with my home. I really love having my kids' photos on the wall. Like the 2.5-year-old is always asking, who's that? Who's that? And he likes to play the game of naming everybody in the pictures and stuff. I'm working on more prints to go in our basement of our extended family and our friends, and just that kind of thing, because I feel like it's really important. It's really good for kids' self-esteem to see themselves in print. They say that the more you see something about yourself, kind of like it's really weird to listen to yourself talk when it's a recording. I know, I'm a podcaster. I hated listening to myself talk when I first started podcasting. Now I don't mind it at all. I'm so used to it. And the same thing happens when you see photos of yourself over and over and over and over and over again. And there are actually studies out there that have linked really positive self-esteem for kids when they see themselves in pictures a lot, including on their wall. And so our children, my generation's children, they have also found that this is the most photographed generation ever. There are more pictures of this generation than there have been of any generation before. And yet there are fewer prints of them than there have been in the last 50 years. Because nobody's printing off their photos. They're all keeping them on their phones and on their computers, which, like I said, will crash eventually. And so I'm really passionate about helping people find a way to get their photos printed. And I know I've done this spiel before on the podcast, but it is that time of year when everybody wants to get their photos printed. It's like a big deal. So the number one website that I recommend printing photos from for consumers is mpix.com. M as in Mary, Pix.com. They are really affordable. It's like Walmart price. It's a little bit more expensive than Walmart pricing, and you do have to pay for shipping. But on the scale of everything between Shutterfly and Snapfish and all these different sites, MPix is one of the least expensive, one of the highest qualities, and one of the best customer service that is out there on the market. So all three of those things are really, really important. That is where I get all of my like gift prints, 8x10s, 4x6s, all that stuff done. And you can print, you can print anything on mpix.com. They have canvases and they have collages and ornaments and like all that stuff like that. They often will run specials, but you have to watch for it or get emails from them to often know when those specials are happening. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired. But I do really like to use them for all of my prints. In fact, their professional lab, MPix Pro, is who I go for all of my gift prints that I turn over to my clients. So when I have clients say, I need an 8x10 for grandma and like all that stuff, I use their Pro Lab, which is not available to consumers, but it's a very similar process and stuff. Things I like about them, their turnaround time is really quick. It doesn't take terribly long. I want to say it takes like a week to get photos most of the time from them, maybe a little bit longer if you're ordering specialty items, but usually I get them within the week. Their customer service is outstanding. They hand inspect everything from an 8x10 and over, like bigger, from 8x10 and bigger. And I order larger prints a lot. I often will order 11x14. This print up here is a 16x20. This is actually a mounted print. And it's mounted on styrene, so it's like really thick and durable, and they just do an excellent job. They keep your photos in the gallery for a long time. Sometimes labs like that, I think they do that. It's been a while since I've ordered through their consumer website, but that's something to keep in mind. Sometimes companies will delete your stuff after a certain amount of time, but I think as long as you place an order within a certain amount of time, like every 6 months, they keep all of your galleries up and store your photos for you. So, but they're really excellent in their customer service and in their quality. I personally do not order glossy prints ever because they get fingerprints on them. I just don't like the way they look. They look cheap to me. That's my own personal thing. Ever since I started ordering prints from even film, I always have ordered a matte print or a luster print, but I never, ever, 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 ever order glossy. And the luster / matte is the old word for it now. It's called luster because it's prettier. That is the print that I will always order from them. They also order other papers and stuff like pearl and metallic and things like that, which I've done and they're pretty, but I really just prefer the plain E-surface luster print is what I like to order from them. So this year I ordered our Christmas cards from tinyprints.com. I have ordered from them before. Again, they have really excellent quality. This year for Christmas cards, I went to 4 different websites that I knew would do a good job. I went to Tiny Prints, MPix, Zazzle.com, and Nations Photo Lab. Nations Photo Lab is not open to the public. You have to have a business to be able to use them, but I went to their stuff too because I have an account with them and I order prints from them and other products and stuff from them sometimes too. So I went to those 4. I'm kind of a crazy person. I designed a Christmas card from each of their websites and then did a price comparison because I knew the quality would be good from every single one of those. This year, Tiny Prints won. They had the sale I needed at the time when I needed it, but I liked the cards that I had designed from all 4 websites with all 4 of their layouts. So that was MPix, Zazzle, Nations Photo Lab, and Tiny Prints, with Tiny Prints being the winner this year. So I just got an email confirmation today that they are on their way. I might be able to show them to you next time I record, depending on when that is. We'll have to see. But that is what we use this year for our Christmas cards. So just keep an eye out for sales for companies like that. Like their Facebook pages or get their email updates or things like that. And then you can... I'm what's called a neo-consumer, and I think a lot of Americans are, in that if we see something as a commodity, we search for the best bang for our buck. If we search for, it's the people who go shopping on Black Friday and then they shop at Whole Foods for their food. I don't shop at Whole Foods, but it's people who, I feel like a lot of yarnies are neo consumers. We search for a really good deal for something like our Christmas cards and then don't have a problem spending $25 for a skein of yarn. That's called a neo consumer. And so I have learned to look for quality and a good deal at the same time. And I feel like all of those companies, if you can catch their deals with their Christmas cards and stuff, that you can often get a good deal, and they're very high quality. So anyway, that is what I thought I would share with you today. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a little bit. So for events, we have several events that are coming up, and I have them on my phone because there's so many of them that I can't keep track of them. Even though I haven't been podcasting for a while, I pretty much have next year completely booked with fiber events, like a lot of them. So I'll just go through them one by one. In 2016, here are the events that are coming up. January 23rd is Knit Nosh. This is hosted with Becky from the Knit Actually podcast. Becky and I have been talking a little bit. She is local to me, and she planned an event called Knit Nosh, which is January 23rd at the Samples World Bistro in Longmont, Colorado, from 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. This is $50, and with the $50, you get a 4-course meal, wine, and yarn sampling. And so I asked her a few questions because I wasn't quite clear on a few of the details. You will end up with a full meal, which is good because, you know, it's $50. And you will try 4 different wines, have a designated driver, and then there are 4 different yarn companies that are going to be there as well. Bijou Basin will be there, Nerd, Sleep Season, and there's another one. It's one I haven't used before, Scandalous. They're all going to be there, and they're all going to be gifting us samples of their yarn and talking about what their yarns are excellent for knitting for, and projects and things, and then we'll get to knit with each of these yarns. And then they will also have yarns available for sale. So we'll see how that goes. I hope some of the locals would like to join us at this event. It should be pretty fun. So yeah, that should be a good one. After that, in February comes Stitches West. This is February 18th through 21st at the Santa Clara Convention Center in Santa Clara, California. I will be there with some really good friends of mine, including Jasmine from the Knitmore Girls, Boston Jen from the Down Solar Studio podcast, Joanna Johnson from Slate Falls Press, and then I know of some other people that are going to be there as well. So if you are going to be at Stitches West, let me know. I want to meet you so badly. There is a podcaster meetup. I looked on the Ravelry group and I didn't see the details about that meetup yet, but I believe it's a few hours. It's like 3 or 4 hours long, like open house style, that you can come and meet everybody. I looked for this past year and that seems to be what it was. So yeah, so that should be a lot of fun. Stitches West is going to be awesome. I've heard it's like 2 to 3 times the size of Stitches Midwest, which is insane because Stitches Midwest is like crazy overwhelming. So I think it's going to be awesome. I'm hoping to meet some really amazing people there. So it'll be a good time. The Interweave Yarn Fest is coming up in March. It's March 31st through April 3rd at the Embassy Suites Hotel in Loveland, Colorado. This is a local event to me, and I might be having a friend come visit for this particular event that I'm super excited about. And it's also right next to my birthday. So I'm kind of toying around with maybe doing a meetup one of the days for my birthday just to meet all of you guys. I don't know. That seems so lame and cheesy at the same time. But if you are local and you want to come hang out with me, I would love to hear that. So, so yeah, that's Interweave Yarn Fest. And then the event after that is not for another 6 months, but I wanted to let you know now that I'll be going. And that is Zombie Knitpocalypse, which is June 1st through 5th in Rochester, Minnesota. Hi! Would you like to come sit with me? Okay. He woke up from his nap. I told you I didn't have a lot of time until he woke up. So Zombie Knitpocalypse is June 1st through 5th. Say hi. Hi. Were you taking a nap? Yeah. Yeah. Was it a good nap?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to sit with me while I finish? Okay, so June 1st through 5th in Rochester, Minnesota. Registration for this event is already closed. It closed within a day or two of it opening, but I did get a spot in it, and I will be at Zombie Knit Apocalypse. I have never been on like a full-fledged knitting retreat. I've been to conventions, and they're so much fun, but they're not terribly restful. So I'm hoping that this will be nice and restful. I know. Can you say hi? Can you say yay knitting? Oh, we disappeared. Say yay knitting.
Yay, knitting.
Do you like to knit? Yeah. Okay. So I think that's going to wrap it up for you guys. So you all can find me lots of different ways. You can find me on Instagram as
My birthday.
Is it your birthday?
Yeah.
In a while. Okay. So you can find me on Instagram as butterflym4. You can find me on Ravelry as Emily Straw. You can email me at butterflym4@gmail.com. You can subscribe on the YouTube channel. You can subscribe on iTunes. You can always leave a review on iTunes, which I really appreciate. And you can always find all the show notes at knittingbutterfliespodcast.com. So I think that's going to be it. So say, see you later, alligator. Say it nice and loud. Say, see you later, alligator. All right. Bye.